Coming up on No Pulp, a couple of upsets in Atlanta and Oxford that shook up the college football playoff scenarios.
And a little basketball starting up as well. Me and Rahill Jaiswal going to go blow for blow in the juicer.
We'll see if some revenge is handed out to Mr. Nicholas in the juicer. We'll find out the juicer bracket. We'll give you all the playoff scenarios in the SEC and a whole lot more. Welcome to 45 minutes of No Pulp, starting now.
Kansas State has been on fire this year.
Missouri is one of the most fraudulent teams in college basketball.
And it was proved fired.
They're not going to fire him. He's the best player in program history.
Side to Lawrence for the win. Yes, he got it.
She is the Shohei Ohtani of college softball. This is a team that's potentially going to be a top 10 team in the country.
How you feeling?
I'm excited to win the juicer.
LSU has captured its very first national championship.
Glad to have you with us here on No Pulp. Andrew Selover, Ian Nicholas back at it again. Ian, a whole lot to break down. We've got basketball season starting, but a couple of big upsets we got to talk about this week on college football because the 12-team playoff means more games right now are more important.
Yeah, the college football playoff rankings come out, and then what happens? 2 of the top 4 teams in their rankings fall. I guess those rankings aren't too hot.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll start in Atlanta. A big shakeup in the ACC where the top dog in Miami again loses to Georgia Tech. Remember last year down in South Florida when they choked it away by not kneeling the ball? Well, this time the Yellow Jackets beat them pretty fair and square.
Yes, Andrew. I know, I was watching your live reaction to that game as somebody who grew up in Atlanta, as an Atlanta, an Atlanta Falcons fan, more of a Georgia Tech fan, I'd say.
Yeah.
But that was a huge win, right? And for Brent Key and company, technically their second top 10 win of the year, but this is a real one because that Week 0 game against Florida State looks more and more fraudulent as we go on this year. But shifting the gears towards Miami because this is a team that, headed into this game had aspirations of potentially competing for a national championship. The dam finally burst, right? Too many close calls for this Miami team and a defense that's unraveled as conference play has gone on. And, Georgia Tech, really without a healthy quarterback in this game, gets the job done in the fourth quarter.
Thought it was a masterful offensive game plan from Buster Faulkner with Aaron Philo, the freshman, and then Haynes King. Haynes King didn't have a shoulder. He couldn't throw the ball.
But he did run the ball.
He did run the ball back on the field for the first time in a couple of weeks. And Georgia Tech just dominated at the line of scrimmage. They dominated the time of possession, had it for over 35 minutes in this game. Just played a clean football game. In Miami, you mentioned they had escaped the jaws of defeat against Cal and Virginia Tech. Felt like this one was coming at some point for the Canes.
In 4 of their previous 5 games, you just mentioned 2 of them. Louisville, that was a shootout tied in the fourth quarter. Duke, a game where you also trailed by double digits in the second half. You made up the ground to beat the Blue Devils. Again, it just felt this team was a little bit out of sync defensively, and you mentioned running the football. They knew headed into this game that Georgia Tech was going to run the ball. Brent Key knows every game. He wants to run the ball, former Georgia Tech offensive lineman himself. It didn't matter. The Yellow Jackets had nearly 200 rushing yards at the half and nearly 300 on the game. I just don't know if this is a problem Miami can really fix at this point in the year.
It wasn't like Miami was built up as a defensive juggernaut either. It was that the offense was going to have to save them, and 23 points definitely wasn't going to be enough for Miami to get wins in the ACC. That's where I think the bigger picture of this loss is felt is in the conference because I'm pretty sure that the ACC is a one-bid league after this.
I don't know because, SMU, they hope that the one bid is for them. Now they sit atop the conference standings. Who would have thought in their first year in the ACC they're undefeated? But Andrew, do you legitimately think, let's say Miami, they take care of business the rest of the way, which is Wake Forest and Syracuse. That's not much business to take care of. And then they get to the ACC championship game and they have to play SMU, and SMU wins. Do you think a 2-loss Miami team can get in?
I don't think so. They almost lost to Cal. They almost lost to Virginia Tech. They don't have many quality wins on the season. I think for this one, you now have no possibility of 2 one-loss teams in the ACC at the end of the year. And I think it's just whoever wins the conference tournament takes the bid and nobody else is in from the ACC.
You know what? I'm proud of us, Andrew. We got through that whole segment. You know who we didn't bring up once?
Clemson.
I say Cam Ward.
Oh.
That's ball knowers there.
Yeah.
Anyways, a game that was on everybody's radar this weekend. Ole Miss, who dropped down to 16th in the country after a couple of tough losses this year, they take down a number 3 team in the country, Georgia. And again, this was a game, Andrew, 28-10, and that final score is not lying. Ole Miss build as this historic season for the program, building through the transfer portal, and man, did they run right through Georgia.
I was impressed all night long from Ole Miss in this one. Sloppy conditions, so you wanted to run the ball, and boy, did they. Jackson Dart had to leave the game at some point, and still managed.
Nasty ankle injury.
Yeah, still managed to win this one by 18. This was an Ole Miss team, and Lane Kiffin, whose knock was, when was the last time they won a big game, right?
Let me tell you. Only his second ever win. Lane Kiffin's only second ever win as a head coach against a top 5 team.
Exactly, and that's where I think these middle to upper tier of the Big Power 5 conference coaches are saved by this 12-team playoff, right? James Franklin, for example, a Lane Kiffin, who aren't consistent enough to get into a 4-team playoff, but it sure seems like they're going to be consistent enough to get into the 12-teamer because Ole Miss has an easy schedule left. Don't choke in the Egg Bowl, and you're probably in the playoff after this one.
And for some reason, we brought up Mississippi State on our last show because you brought them up in the juicer, but that's been an awful Mississippi State team this year. You know, Ole Miss does scare me a little bit because they also lost to Kentucky. The lows of this team, like you said, are so low, but then the highs with a roster that they spent $10+ million on in NIL in the offseason, they're so good. They made Carson Beck, Carson Beck's been pretty bad this year, but they made him look so bad as they continued to harass him all game long. 5 sacks for them. Jackson Dart, like you said, he didn't win them this game. The defense did.
Yeah, maybe the fans shouldn't have stormed the field with 16 seconds left on the clock.
Oh, come on. This is the biggest win maybe in program history.
I know, but for Ole Miss, let's talk about that team. That's a team that if they had beaten LSU, not choked away that lead and lost in overtime, they're basically a shoo-in already to the playoff, but they should still make it if they handle business. Georgia, far from clinching a playoff berth. Now, this is a real concern. I just don't think Georgia has looked like itself all year. You're almost losing to Florida and to Kentucky. Real danger with Tennessee coming to town this week.
Oh, totally. And we're going to get more into that later in the show. This is not the best Georgia team we've seen, and it's nowhere close. Carson Beck, I understand everybody is dogpiling on him right now, no pun intended, but he's had no help, right? Only 24 yards for Trevor Etienne on the ground. That can't happen. This guy was supposed to be a star this season for them, and he's been dinged up all season long. And that offensive line, down 2 starters, did him no favors.
Yeah, I mean, this was the fewest points they have ever scored under Kirby Smart. They only put up 10. Their only touchdown came on a shortened field. It felt like they can't sustain.
They strike first, and then they lose.
They can't sustain a single offensive drive right now, it feels like. And I don't know if it's all Carson Beck. It feels like they got problems all over the place because that was a top 5 offense the last 2 years. You know where they rank right now in offense? 50th.
And top
50th.
Outside the top 100 in rushing yards too.
It's pitiful.
They can't support Beck. Beck's not a game changer. He's proven, came into the year as a Heisman favorite. Now he might go on day 2 of the NFL draft because he's not a Cam Ward type. He can't elevate the guys around him.
He can't change the game, and when they didn't bring their best football, they managed to lose another one. Look out, Georgia. You lose this week, you're out of the playoffs.
Yes.
Another SEC matchup that showed a dominant performance. LSU and Alabama, nighttime in Death Valley, live Tiger on the field. Didn't matter for the Crimson Tide. They rolled all over the Tigers.
Yeah, elephants over the Tigers, and Jalen Milroe all over the Tigers. I'm just going to be honest. This is the version of Jalen Milroe that's most dominant, right? 4 touchdowns, all of them on the ground.
Put him back in the Heisman campaign.
No.
Oh, come on.
What is this, the Auburn game last year where he was screaming, give me the Heisman, give me the... Okay, Jalen, look, you're a project of an NFL quarterback, but in college, you're untackleable, right? I mean, most rushing touchdowns in a single game for Alabama. The only other guy who's done it, Jalen Hurts from the quarterback position. He's pretty good. LSU had no answer for him. I just love that Alabama understands that their backs are against the wall. They need to be perfect, and they went to their best option on offense, which is give this guy the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he went for 4 rushing touchdowns last year against the Tigers.
Yes.
And he did it again this year against the Tigers, except this one is a 42-13 win, not a 42-28 win. I mean, Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator for LSU, he should probably get fired after that performance because they just couldn't stop the quarterback, and that's the game plan against
Look,
Alabama.
he hasn't reached Alex Grinch USC level territory, but I guess we're getting close.
My other thing for LSU, obviously this was an elimination game basically from the playoff.
Yes.
Brian Kelly's got to start coming under question for LSU.
I think it's so weird. I was thinking about this throughout the day. LSU's such a weird past few seasons. Jaden Daniels, such a great quarterback. Nussmeier, I know he didn't have a great game, but he's become such a great quarterback. How are you wasting these guys?
Well, there's real questions coming under the scrutiny of analysts at LSU about how they're recruiting right now, whether they're actually getting top talent. I don't know what's going on there, but this is the backside of the 12-team playoff. We talked about how some coaches are going to benefit in a world where coaches get fired just like that, right? Some coaches aren't going to benefit because if your team expects that you're a top 15 program and you can't get your team into the playoff, well, you're not going to have a job for much longer.
Right. I mean, the USC win looked so strong at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Now the Trojans have fallen completely off the track. You can still hang your hat on that Ole Miss overtime win. It looks better now after this week. But, I mean, just no progress.
You can't lose by 30 to Alabama.
No.
I mean, this is an Alabama team that people want Kalen DeBoer out of town, right?
Oh, come on. If you're saying Kalen DeBoer should be out of town
I'm not, but I'm saying that there's been a lot of scrutiny about what the Crimson Tide can do this year, and you just lost at home on a night game where you're supposed to be unbeatable by 30.
Yes.
I mean, that's got to be serious cause for concern about whether your coach is valid to stay in Baton Rouge.
Does he stay in Baton Rouge as of next year? They can't get rid of him after this season.
If they lose another game or two, they might get rid of him.
But how much money? I mean, only 2 years into his contract, or 3 years into his contract.
Yeah,
so
he'll
much money
probably
on the
be around, but I do think that LSU's a program that if through 2 years of a 12-team playoff you don't make it, that's probably game, set, and match for Brian Kelly.
I agree. This team has fallen off the trail since Joe Burrow and that perfect team at Ogeron. Maybe they shouldn't have gotten rid of him so fast. BYU, this team is hot, ready, and ready to go maybe to the college football playoff. A great game. What do they call this game, BYU? The Holy War. BYU, Utah. What a game it was. But Utah loses 22-21 in a game that, they put everything on the line in a season that hasn't gone their way. And, emotions are starting to boil over in Salt Lake City, specifically with their athletic director, Mark Harlan.
This game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us. Very disappointed. I will talk to the commissioner. This was not fair to our team. I'm disgusted by the professionalism of the officiating crew tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan. That's some kind of soundbite. He said he talked to the commissioner. The commissioner talked to him. $40,000 fine yesterday, Andrew, and pretty much public shaming.
Next he's going to be complaining about people stealing money out of his wallet because it's going to be feeling a little light after that complaint.
Do you feel he's in the right?
No, totally unreasonable. There are mistakes left and right in officiating. He asked for one holding call that was borderline. It wasn't even completely wrong.
But then also BYU got a timeout right at the buzzer.
I don't care. It was a borderline call, and he's just upset about that, and he's mad that his team blew a lead. You can't take that out on the officials. That's college football for you. The officials aren't going to get everything right. And if every athletic director came to the podium after an official got something wrong, they'd all be out of money.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's why you have Kyle Whittingham. Whittingham is your human shield in that point. He's been there. He's done that. He knows what to say and what not to say. He went out before Whittingham.
Since what? Like athletic directors don't do that. Don't do that. They don't go talk after the game to the media. That is not a good idea, and it proved that it was not a good idea.
Like, it's already a season where your expectations for your year, college football playoff expectations for Utah headed into the year. And, little brother, BYU, storming out of nowhere. What a movement they have. Yeah. Albeit, we could talk about maybe how fluky their 9-0 start has been. But more importantly, just to kind of close the book on Utah, no Cam Rising this year. He was supposed to be the guy. He gets injured again. And, they put everything. This was the definition of throw the records out the window, play your best football, and they did. but they still come up short.
And this is a Big 12 if we flip the script to BYU, and what they've done so far, still undefeated. Also, like the ACC, feels like it could be a one-bid league, could be a league where BYU needs to win out and win the conference title. But it almost feels like after this win, this is a team of destiny. They've won 4 one-score games already this year. Kind of reminds me of that TCU team from a couple years back that just couldn't lose a football game to save their lives.
Yeah.
Got all the way to the championship and then got boat raced by Georgia.
I mean, Jake Retzlaff has been a great story. He doesn't play his best game here, but you know, he has been a national storyline this season for what he's done coming into this program. You said that they're just going to roll through a Big 12 that's underperformed this year just because they feel like the team of destiny. I got one team that could take them down.
I got 2 ideas. You're either going to tell me Kansas or you're going to tell me Arizona State. Which one do you want?
Neither.
Oh,
Colorado.
well, that would
What
be
a
in
year
the Big
they've
12.
had under Deion Sanders,
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. The rest of the team has come around them. You don't think they can pose a challenge?
They could. It depends on if they make it to the Big 12 title game where BYU feels like they're a shoo-in at this point. But
Yes.
again, at this point, all of those Power 4 conference title games are play-ins into the playoffs. So that could be a fun one if we get BYU and Colorado
Prime
trying
time.
to make the playoff. What's also going to be fun is when Ian Nicholas enters the juicer after this. Rahill Jaiswal is standing by to try and dethrone Mr. Nicholas. It's a play-in game into the juicer tournament, and you don't want to miss it.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother, you, your football buddy, your football buddy, you, your plumber,
Breathe right into your foot.
your plumber's masseuse,
Yes.
you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzzed and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Here we go. We're gonna go out there in the rain. Gonna get wet. All right, here we go. Okay, quick. Oh yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. We're getting so wet.
Oh, no Pulp juice, the fake prize here on the Juicer. The real prize, a spot in the Juicer tournament. Rahill Jaiswal is with us. Who knew you even had a chance until they put you on the Juicer?
I was surprised too.
The last Juicer before the tournament, and that means you win. You're in.
Hey, we got a shot.
You got
it's
a
time
shot.
to take advantage.
Also, Mr. Nicholas has a shot. The real problem for you is
What?
the crime that you committed the last time we
What are
were
you
on the
talking
show.
about? What?
I'm just talking.
You lost fair and square to an elite challenger who's been knocking on the door for years.
I'm
in
just
Sam
saying,
Reese.
the last time we were on the show, Ian said that the Big Ten was more competitive than the SEC in football. Good news for you. We're not talking football today.
No.
We're talking college basketball, and we will start with Mr. Nicholas. A 1-point question to begin. Just one weekend. Plenty of upsets already. The biggest one, the biggest surprise on the men's side.
Man, Villanova just can't win a game, can they? Under Kyle Neptune, I understand. Nobody had necessarily super high expectations for Villanova this season, but Columbia by double digits on your home court. 17.5-point favorites, Rahill. 90 points from Columbia. This is no world beater Ivy League team, by the way. They've won an average of 8 games over the last half a decade. They're picked to finish 5th in the conference this year, and they got 26 free throws. They take advantage of them. Kyle Neptune should be fired yesterday.
Oh, my. That's a bold take. Rahill, you got one of those in you?
How about we actually talk about a ranked team that was a complete failure in the opening week of the season? And that is Texas A&M losing to UCF. Come on, you're the 13th ranked team in the country, and you lose to a UCF team that doesn't have much. If this was 2016, I'd agree Villanova's up there as number one. But not only that, the Aggies led this game by double digits with 7 minutes left to go. They got outscored 19-7 to finish the game. A complete collapse on Texas A&M side. Come on, UCF, a ranked team in Texas A&M falling. You didn't even pick a ranked team, Andrew.
Villanova has been one of the best teams in college basketball over the last decade.
I didn't require a ranked team. He picked a blue blood. Also, a problem for you, Benny Williams put up 2 points in that win. Those were 2 of the 3 deciding points. So no points for you, Mr. Rahill.
I've always been a Benny Williams guy.
Well, there's no way.
1 point for Ian Nicholas
soaring
on the first question of the juicer. What are you complaining about?
Come on, you can't put the Benny Williams.
All right, next question. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear
it.
The Big 12. Who's your favorite to win on the men's side in the Big 12?
Listen, I know their stock is down right now, but I'm going to go with Houston. I still have a lot of faith in this team. Yes, the opening week loss wasn't ideal, but this is still a Houston team that to me is very good. They have a very good chance at repeating in the Big 12 because there's one thing that travels, and that's defense and rebounding. And they bring both of them. I like the way this team is coached as well. I understand, not a good start to the season, but hey, no team has gone undefeated to win a national championship or win the Big 12. So I'm going with Houston.
I know we're talking about men's hoops, but Dawn Staley would like a word, first of all, in terms of going undefeated. Very good. Houston's been very good and been playing great defense for years. It doesn't lead to anything. Bill Self leads to wins. And what a win you have. So arguably the win of a college basketball season so far against UNC. A raucous environment. Kansas and UNC, they haven't played a game in Kansas since 1960. It lived up to the billing, but I'm going to go big picture. Why are they going to win the Big 12? Last year they were awful, right? By their standards.
Yes,
they only had 5 guys who could play on the court, and when McCullough went down, it was 4. This year they have reloaded their depth. They have 8 guys who can legitimately play. They had a guy off the bench, Mayo. I thought I would see an OJ Mayo out there. Shout out to OJ.
We're good, right?
We're so good. Kansas is so good. Number 1, and they're still there.
Okay, you've had your fair share of time. More bad news for you. Your Houston team lost to an Auburn team that the Auburn team was playing without its fight, Rahill. Without its fight, and they still managed to lose. So 2 more points to Mr. Nicholas. It is 3-0 here on the Juicer. Last question, good news for you for the first time all show. The last question is worth 3 points, so you still have a chance. We go back to Ian Nicholas on this one. Most impactful transfer on the men's basketball side.
Man, I thought it was over after 3 points. A Juicer tournament, I'm washed. I don't know how this works anymore. Coleman Hawkins. This guy does it all. He was so good he should have gone to the NBA, right? I mean, he was literally in the NBA draft until the last second, and then he said, you know what? I'm going to go play college basketball. You know why? They paid him $2 million. Jerome Tang said, save me, Coleman. I didn't make the tournament in my second year. I need a dog. This guy does it all. 12 points, 7 boards, 2.5 dimes, 1.5 steals, 1 block a game last year at Illinois. He was voted as the preseason newcomer of the year in the Big 12. He's going to make a splash. I love this guy. NBA teams will too when he gets there.
Well, Ian Nicholas might have celebrated too early. What you got, Rahill?
Well, I mean, they're still not going to the tournament this year, even with all that being count. How about AJ Storr from Kansas, a team that actually has a chance to do something this year? And Ian just talked about it. He's a huge fan, but this guy is the definition of a big game player. How about we look at what he did at Wisconsin this year? Let's go to the Big Ten tournament with all the money's on the line. 30 points in the quarterfinal, 20 in the semifinal, and 24 in the championship game. This is a Kansas team that's going to want to go all the way. They're going to need a big-time scorer. He's one of them. He's going to make
their second best scorer off the bench. Sure, very impactful.
Can you do the Jerome Tang and the Wildcat dance for me?
No. That's all I can do.
Not good enough. Rahill gets
That's-
3 points. We're going to the bonus question.
rigged.
Here on the Juicer. Again,
It's Unchained
winner
Selover.
takes all. Winner of this one going to the Juicer tournament. The loser is out. And we start with Rahill on this one. First week of women's college basketball. Who impressed you the most?
Yeah, there was a lot of different options we could have gone with this because there was a lot of unbelievable performers in the opening week. But it's going to be Reagan Smith out of Oklahoma. She was really good, dominant all day long for Oklahoma. They picked up a very easy win against the Virginia squad. But how about 26 points and 14 boards in 22 minutes of action? She shot over 70% from the floor. Also, couple of assists, couple of blocks, not many turnovers either, which is tough when you're getting double teamed all the time.
Who was that? Who's your pick?
Reagan Smith, Oklahoma.
Okay, Ian Nicholas.
It's Sila Swords. That's the name for Michigan. And it's a name that every women's college basketball player has player, fan, coach, everybody. Will I anoint her as the new Caitlin Clark? I won't. But 27 points against the number 1 team in the country, single-handedly willing Michigan into a game against South Carolina, a former McDonald's All-American, the youngest player ever on the Canadian national team.
I'll cut you off. Rahill wasn't prepped for the bonus question. Didn't match up with the graphic. Ian Nicholas wins it. Ian Nicholas is making it into the top 8. He is going to the Juicer tournament. As Ian chugs, let's check out those final standings on the Juicer as we head to the Juicer tournament. Those top 8, they're headed to the big dance. Rahill comes in 2 spots behind the line with Mr. Leonard, the last one out. Max Gifford is the last one into the Juicer tournament. And we've got a bracket for you, everybody. Mr. Nicholas in at the 2 seed. Mr. Burgess searches for the early upset.
You're going down, Burgers.
Ryan Bridges is the 1 seed. Remember, 1 seed has never won the Juicer tournament in the history.
No one's ever won the Juicer tournament.
We'll see who's the inaugural champion over the next couple of weeks, and we need a break. Get out of here, Rahill. You lost. Shake hands first. We're headed to a break. When we return, SEC, the most competitive conference in college football. We'll break down who's headed to the playoff and who's going to be left out from the SEC.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown and feel technique. After the first drown, a good stir. Next, another drink. And finally, a close feel.
Is it cool? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Smokey, catch! Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
And they're still alive with an eye toward the college football playoff.
Ewers, desperation fling, fitting ending to this ball game.
And he lobs it downfield for another Texas takeaway. Vanderbilt takes down #1 Alabama. Out SEC on a day like this.
Starting across the field to congratulate Shane Beamer. Flings it into the ground, and that's it.
Back shoulder, touchdown! Kyron Lacey, and LSU wins!
1 week you're on top of the world. The next, as LSU knows, you're at rock bottom. That is the SEC. Ian Nicholas alongside Andrew Selover. We're going back to football after, taking the gold in the juicer with the hoops. And,
here.
It feels like Lightning McQueen's back there.
Yeah.
It feels like it's like Dynaco. It's like, who's going to win?
We're ready for the 3-way tie at the finish in the SEC, it feels like, or maybe a 6-way tie at the SEC top.
Yeah, Andrew, and a lot of those final calls that we just heard from announcers calling these games, some of them end with, SEC going to college football playoff. What are those hopes? But just kind of throw that out the window for a second and just kind of remark on how deep this. We always know this conference is top heavy, but deeper than in years past.
It feels that way. Obviously, you added a couple teams and you knew that they would be good, although Oklahoma's not that good at football right now. But it does feel like we've never even seen a season where so many teams have a chance at, say, the SEC title game in the last couple of weeks. We've only got a couple of weeks to go, and you've got 7 teams, not just in their SEC records, their overall records have 1 or 2 losses. Nobody's undefeated. None of those top 7 are shoo-ins into the SEC title game. You could pick any of them, and they've still got a chance to make it. I can't remember a year that we've seen something like this. I do think the scheduling has something to do with it. Not all of your top teams are going to play each other because the conference is so big.
Sure.
But it's total chaos.
And I know this isn't a Big Ten block, but when you and I were talking about this before the show, you got a Big Ten where Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State, for the most part, have found a way to avoid each other all year, and they all look very clean on the win-loss record because of it.
Yeah.
These teams, it's just been total carnage.
Yeah, at least these teams are playing each other. It feels like in the Big Ten, they're just skating by, and, Indiana only has to play Ohio State. Ohio State has to play Oregon and Indiana. Oregon has to play just Ohio State, and Penn State only had to play Ohio State. So Ohio State's the big loser there, but the other 3 teams don't have to play anybody. SEC, everybody has to play each other, and it feels like at this point, it's every week is an elimination game at some point, and we've got another one coming up this week because Georgia's playing Tennessee, and if the Dogs can't bounce back at home, well, Kirby Smart and the Dogs are kicked to the curb.
But same thing for Tennessee, too, and they've
they're only 1 loss.
Yeah, but does their resume necessarily? Yes, they've beaten Alabama, and Alabama looks to be back on track this year, but I just don't know if Tennessee's got that. What's their signature win outside of that? There's nothing else. They've looked very shaky, Andrew, in SEC play. They have not dominated their competition.
Yeah, it is unfortunate for the Vols that their loss isn't better because they did lose to Arkansas, which doesn't look great.
Not
Nico
recently,
Iamaleava not at 100%, but should play this weekend in Athens. Kirby Smart has really taken it upon himself that his Georgia team, whenever they lose a game, will bounce back. But it feels like we talked about at the start of this show that this isn't your old Georgia team from the last couple of
But
years.
it's still Kirby Smart, right?
Yes.
I understand we had to talk about the personnel a little bit earlier, but just remember, Ole Miss, the first team to beat Georgia, not named Alabama, since 2020. So I feel like that could be a bounce back. We'll talk a little bit more about who we think is going to get into the playoff in just a second. But we have to talk about one more regular season game with a lot of playoff implications on the line. It's in a few weeks, but it's still important enough. People are already starting to talk about it. Texas and Texas A&M. I know A&M just came off a tough loss, albeit to a not-so-bad South Carolina team. But the highs of Texas A&M this year, in the first year under Mike Elko, really good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think anybody expected for Texas A&M and a couple of these other teams that at this point in the season, they would say, okay, we still control our own destiny to probably getting into the playoff. For A&M, you lost that early season game against Notre Dame when it felt like you couldn't move the ball down the field whatsoever. And had they not gotten blown out by South Carolina, A&M might be in even without a win in this game, but now this will be a must-win game for the Aggies. We'll see about the Longhorns, but I do think they're the better team in this game.
So let's just say, for fun, Texas loses this game. Do you have any doubt this is the final game of the regular season, that they make the playoff after that?
I got doubt on everybody at this point. I mean, it felt like for this SEC, we were talking before the season that, you'll probably include a 3-loss SEC team in the playoff. Some of these 2-loss teams might not get in. Remember, Missouri has only 2 losses, and I'm not sure there's even a path for the Tigers into the playoff right now. You look at who they got left. Those are all winnable games against South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas.
But that's not a good thing.
Right. It probably isn't. But it's totally possible that it's a 10-2 Missouri team, and yet they, in my eyes, are on the outside looking in because their 2 losses are so bad and by so much.
Right. I mean, look, they got proved to be what they are, which top 10 team at the start of the year, but struggles with Boston College, flat out awful loss at Kyle Field at Texas A&M. It's a shame the win-loss record looks good, but I think if you look at their full schedule, you kind of see that, Eli Drinkowitz is maybe drinking a little too much orange juice instead of prepping. Andrew, we've talked enough about the big games coming up. Well, let's fast forward even farther.
Yeah.
Which SEC teams get into the playoffs and which ones are racing out of the stadium?
Yeah, so Missouri didn't make the cut up here, and they're not going to make the cut in my 7 teams cut down to 4. Exactly. So we got 7 teams we think have a chance. We only got 4 that can make it. I'm saying Missouri's out. I'm saying Texas A&M is out because I think the Aggies do lose to Texas. And I've got Georgia out. This is a little bit of a hedge on my part because I think Georgia could lose to Tennessee this week. And I also think that Georgia Tech beating Georgia in the last week of the season is not out of the picture if Haynes King is available. So 2 games where Georgia
he'll be available, he'll just be a running back.
Right, but Georgia only won by 1 score against the Yellow Jackets last year. And so I do think 2 games where Georgia has to win both of them. And I haven't seen the Dogs as a team that are going to perform at their best week in and week out. So I do think one of those stumbles up UGA and they miss out as well.
Look, if they lose that Tennessee game, no one's going to. The only person caring about that Georgia Tech game will be you for pure pride. But let's talk a little bit more about Georgia. Let's talk about my picks because I already kind of alluded to it a few seconds ago. But here's the thing. O-line's in shambles. The running game's busted. Carson Beck is spending too much time with his girlfriend.
Whoa.
But, hey, I don't know. I mean, the point being, let me get to the point here. I'm going to ride with Kirby Smart until the wheels fall off. And we're not there yet. We're almost there, but we're not there yet. You know what? I know we're based in Syracuse, so I'll say this. Fran Brown's voice is ringing in my ears when he says Kirby Smart is the GOAT. He's not the GOAT, but with Nick Saban out of the picture, there's no guy that he's like the Tom Brady of college football. With his back against the wall, why would I pick against him? I think they beat Tennessee at home this week, and they take care of business. They get in, and then you and I agree on the other 3.
I also do want to issue a statement here. Just a word of caution to 2 teams that we had in that we didn't really talk about. Alabama, Ole Miss. You better handle business on rivalry week because we've seen it before. Alabama can stumble in the Iron Bowl, and so can Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. So don't be shocked if there's some chaos even up till that last week of the regular season. One more question for you.
Sure.
Does the SEC championship, being in it as a two-loss team, actually hurt you?
I think not. I think that this committee is going to understand. I almost feel like making it to the SEC championship game is a win.
Right.
I think it's an unofficial win. If you're going to get dinged for that, then once again, the expanded CFP still doesn't understand what they're doing.
So 2-loss team in the SEC title game that loses probably still gets in your mind with 3 losses.
Yep, it's SEC bias all the way through.
All right.
All right. Well, we still got a little bit more show to go, and we'll wrap it up like we usually do. Our final words, our plays of the week. You got to stay tuned for a little bit more on No Pulp.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who wants to care of you.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move.
So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Back with you as we finish up No Pulp here in the studios of Citrus TV. Andrew Selover will get you back to Ian Nicholas in just a second as we get you our top plays of the week. And I'm going right back to the SEC because it just means more. And for Oklahoma, special teams did just mean more this week. Let's check out this fake punt. So Oklahoma's punter, Luke Elzinga, the pop pass as he leaps the line, dumps it off to Bowersharp. They get the first down on the fake punt. Unfortunately, after that hurdle, Oklahoma would fumble it 4 times in this game, and one too many cost them the game as Missouri escaped again.
And that's why, if you have to do that to win the game, you probably shouldn't be in the playoff consideration. Let's go to the hardwood, though, and talk about a player I've thought about for years. VJ Edgecombe. I remember when I was playing NBA 2K, slotting in the NBA draft classes for my team rebuilds, and I said, VJ Edgecombe, this guy can't be a real person. Well, he's finally playing college basketball, and he is so real. And the one person who surely knows of his existence is Mark Few's son, Joe. Joe, get out of the way, Joe. This is such a bad game for Gonzaga, and what a great dunk for VJ, an All-American at the high school level, a 5-star recruit, flexing his muscle over a preferred walk-on, and maybe his father should just boot him off the team at this point.
Well, Ian, Chris Paul cut it to a 42-point game, and VJ Edgecombe cut that one to a 33-point game because it was all Zags over Baylor in the Pacific Northwest. Time for the final words for mine. I keep it with college football. It's a sport I know and I love. And unfortunately, I've got to talk about there's just been too much trash on the field from the student sections this year. Unacceptable at this point. It started a couple weeks back when Texas hosted Georgia, and there was a bad call that got overturned and then re-overturned, and Texas fans threw trash on the field. Coach Shark had to come over, say enough's enough. And then Matthew McConaughey had to post about how that's unacceptable. And it feels like Texas has kind of put that on a platform where now all these other student sections say, oh, this is cool to throw trash on the field. Saw it multiple times this week. Texas Tech's head coach had to get on the microphone and tell his fans, you can't do this. It has to stop. LSU fans were throwing trash on the field, and their team lost by 30 to Alabama. At some point, enough is enough. We can't keep disgracing the game that we love by throwing trash on the field at these games. It's endangering the players, and it has to stop.
Yeah, somebody who's been behind the microphone saying that has had to stop as a commentator, Kirk Herbstreit. And that's actually where my final word goes, because when you think of college football, you think of Kirk Herbstreit, but over the last few years, you've thought of his dog, Ben. And unfortunately, you probably know the news at this point. His dog, Ben, passed away with a battle with cancer, and the college football game day crew did a really great job really letting the country know just how important this dog, really a best friend. You see these moving pictures here. They show you not only how important this dog was to Kirk Herbstreit, but to the entirety of college football. He was college football's best friend. Kirk Herbstreit said it himself, and it really, that package, that TV package that they did for Ben on College Game Day over the weekend, to be honest, it gave me a better perspective on just how important this dog was, because sometimes I'd see this dog in the middle of the game, and I'll be honest, as somebody who's had dogs for years, and I love my dog, I said, do we really need the dog? But then when I learned the story of Kirk Herbstreit going on the road and the travel that he goes through, whether he's calling an NFL game or a college game, and this dog being by his side in the hotel room every single time. I mean, how could you not get emotional about that? So really sad loss for Kirk, really. I'm feeling for him, but I know he'll be fine because the whole college football world's pulling for him.
Yeah, everyone's pulling for him. Ben was the best, and boy, we're going to miss seeing him on College Game Day every Saturday morning. Pleasure to have you with us for the last 45. Andrew Selover, Ian Nicholas saying good night.